Hi, welcome back. We are going to do a quick tutorial on a cover system. This will be a very basic cover system. The project you can download from the website. We'll just quickly go to project settings. So currently we have a few inputs: crouch, shoot, cover, aim, jump. Making use of the Unreal Engine for animation sample blueprint. Unreal Engine for animation starter pack, so that would be the SP. So I just downloaded that from the marketplace. It's free, and there's a placeholder R1 rifle, and I guess we can get started. So hopefully you followed the ledge climbing stuff. It'll basically be based off of that. However, this project, to keep things clean, we haven't included that, so we're not going to integrate it over this. There's a few functions and macros already included. There's a shoot function which just shoots standard forward trace, which is the basic forward tracing for checking if there's a wall to take cover at, and then also cover first position, which takes you to the first hit location of the wall when the trace is successful, and an out cover which makes use of the move component 2 node. The reason I chose this instead of just lerping the actor rotation is because it's already got a lerping function built into it, and it works pretty straightforward. Don't need to add a timeline and lerp. So that is the basics. There's a is covered bool, wall normal, and wall location vectors that we added. So let's get started on this. We're gonna add the input for the cover. Okay, and from this we're gonna have to have a check of some sort. I think let's just remove the check for now. Let's go straight to the sphere trace by channel. Remember to set the radius here to 20, and we can put the debug for 1 frame just so we can actually see it doing something. And we'll use the standard forward trace, plug that into the start and end location. So effectively you should be familiar what this does. It just gets the actor rotation forward vector, breaks it down. This I'm just moving down, the text is a bit in the way there. So these are just placeholders on the Z values. You can leave that. It gets the actor location, breaks it off in order to add it. So the reason I broke it is because I want to modify the Z value, and we're just multiplying by specific values that we can set on the input of this macro. That would then basically mean that's how far it's going to trace. So we can just change that to 150 units. And then from there on we'll branch out to see if we are getting a positive hit, if something is actually being hit, and we need to set the wall normal and the wall location. We'll break the hit result. Some of this information might seem redundant if you finished the ledge climbing tutorial, because we did extremely similar things, if not identical. So at the wall normal, we'll set that from the impact normal. Just to quickly recap, so the impact normal would be if we're doing a trace and it hits this surface here, the normal of this plane would then come out, and that would be the normal. And we'll take the impact point, plug that into the wall location. I'm just going to swap these two around so those lines aren't intersecting one another. Okay, and then from there we'll want to move the component to its initial location. So just grab the capsule component over in the components view, say move components. You can do this another way. You can also tell it to, you can lerp the location if you want to. You can also tell the AI to take control for those few seconds and just move to the location, but then you need a nav mesh and stuff like that. And at the relative location for the starting position, we've got the macro cover first position, so we'll plug that in. And then we need a new macro for the get the relative location. So at the end of the day, what we want there is we want to basically have we actually just want the wall normal. But so let's build one quick. We'll just get this, make XY rotation. We'll get the capsule component and we'll get its up vector, and we'll use this up vector for by the make rotation it should be XZ, make rotation XZ, XZ, there we go. This up should plug in there and bam, we've got that. So we will probably be using this often, or at least base other things off of this. So I'm just going to collapse this to a macro, and I'm going to call this the copy, what do we call it? Copy get vector. Okay, for now I'm just going to call it copy dash dash xz. So this one can be used, but later basically what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to open this up, just copy the information inside here and reuse it, make little adjustments as required. So that's why I'm calling it copy. So effectively what it's doing is getting the wall normal, the x value off of that, and it's taking the capsule components up vectors and to build the rotation, and that'll create our value for us. Okay, after this is done, we need to say set the cover, so it is covered, so it's currently in cover position. Now one thing that we're going to add quickly is we're going to add the yaw. Set use controller yaw rotation. We're going to set that to false. The reason for that is we want to actually see what happens when if it's rotated correctly, because the controllers currently will always use the yaw. From this false branch after the sphere, I'm just going to add a reroute node. Okay, and I'm going to comment on it just to say what happens if cannot cover. Okay, reason for that, so I want to remember, okay, this is where I'll build some logic if I want something else to happen after that. So I think that should be that, except we need to cater for when the player wants to while they're in cover, we want to press the cover button again and they leave cover. You can do this quite basically just doing a check. My words are, I'm finding it extremely difficult to talk at the moment. For some reason my brain is not functioning. Okay, so basically we're going to do get the cover, check if it is in cover. If it is not in cover, it'll go through the process and check if we can go into cover. If it is not, we'll just set, if it is, we'll just set it to false. Okay, I'm just saving. After it saves, you can quickly check it out. Does something happen? Okay, so it goes to where we want. Currently it's not really a cover solution because you can still walk away. You'll also notice that if you press Q now, my button is mapped to Q, press cover, it won't do anything because it believes it's in a cover state. So the second time you press it, it'll go through. Fixing that should be relatively easy. I apologize, let me just quickly change the sound settings. So that would be under editor preferences, miscellaneous, enable editor sounds, there we go. Okay, now we need to move over to the controls just to accommodate the player if they did not press the cover while they were in cover. We want them to press back as well to take them out of cover, so we'll just quickly create something for that. Okay, so create a branch and check if is it in cover. If it's false, just continue as normal. However, if it is true, I want to get the value from this axis value for the forward, so we'll just do equal. And if it's -1, it means you're pressing back. We'll branch out, and if that is the case, that you pressed back now, then we'll set is covered to false. And considering the state will change here now, we don't really need to complete it to go through, because it'll never reach this point anymore. It'll immediately switch from here to false and then go through. Okay, so that should take care of the forward controls. Let's just quickly test that out. So if I press back now, it should go. If I press forward, it won't do anything. If I press back, it goes. Okay. Now we need to look at the sideways controls. So I'm just going to move this up to the end. I'm going to create a reroute node from the axis value on move right, just to have it there, and maybe just move it there, because we'll probably use it for some check just now. Get is covered and branch out. I will go basically follow the same flow. If it is false, it'll just immediately go to the state. However, if it is true, we want to get this value and check if it's not equal. Okay, if it's not equal to 1, I'll explain to you in a moment why we're doing this. This will make a bit more sense soon why exactly I'm taking this approach. I'm just going to move that there. Okay, so now that that is done, I think we'll have to probably add another bool value. So let's just quickly create a new bool and call it cover selected, and we'll set this to false. We'll keep it in false, and we'll plug that into final location. So it's constantly going to set this to false. That's fine. After the check, okay, so the reason we're doing this is we're checking if it's covered. If it's covered, go through and then see if you're actually adding some input. If you're not currently busy pushing left or right, we want it to stop here, because here we are going to add another branch event, and this is actually going to go back to a function. So we need a function. Now the reasoning is that we need to actually move somewhere. Let's create the function and call it canMove in cover. I'm going to make it a pure function. Add a output, just call it, leave it as a bool or change it to bool if you have to. I'm going to call it canMove. I'm going to move it way up all the way there, and we'll see now what we're doing with this. This function needs to, where is it, canMove. Okay, so the reason we are splitting these bools is because we do not want this function to constantly fire. What we're going to be doing in the function is doing a line trace. So from this true, it'll go through to the movement component. So that should be the basics. Let's quickly sort out this function that we want. So that'll basically, or that will be a trace, line trace. I'm going to make it a line trace, not a sphere trace, so it's a bit, you could probably use a sphere trace, but just keep in mind it'll have to be a small radius, line trace by channel. Bring this thing back, plug it in there. Okay, and the start value, let's just add a reroute node so we know it's going somewhere. And for the end, we'll use select, because if we press left, we want to select this option. If we press right, we want to select that option. In order to determine that, we can just do a get move right. It'll return the axis value for us, and we can check if it's equal to -1. It means we're pressing right, and it'll select this option. So the right value will go in there, and the left value will go in there. I'll just make a vector from this one, and we'll make a vector from there. We're working a bit backwards now, so I think let's rather change. I'm just adding make array there. Okay, so let's rather start right at the beginning. So we've got that copy macro. Just open that up and select those values, paste it in, and we want the wall normal, but we want it to actually face the wall, so we'll just multiply by -1 on the x and y. Actually, I wonder if what the result will be. Split. We can just -1 like this and still get the correct value. I don't actually know. It's very possible. Guess we can just test it, but for now I'll test that after we did this tutorial, just to check. Okay, so we've got the very basics done, and we want to get the forward and the right vector. Let's get the forward vector and let's get the right vector. Okay, and from here we will probably have to break these things up. Okay, now that that is broken, let me just move this stuff back, and I'm gonna move it more because I generally have run out of space most of the time. Okay, so we want to multiply these values. Make multiply flat by flat. Okay, got x and y, and do the same for the right vector. We need to get the actor location also. I almost forgot about that. Get location, actor, get actor location. There we go. I'm gonna drag this out and add a reroute node. Okay. Oh, what we're also forgetting is need to make an array. Make a vector. From the x and y values, same for this one. Okay, so we'll go over in a second, we'll go over these, what exactly is happening here. Once that is done, we'll have to add, let's add from here, so it's already in the top. Vector plus vector, so we want to add the current, we want to add these values. We need to add values in this, so it's basically the same concept. It's how far the trace is going to happen, so we'll make that extremely short. We'll make this one a bit longer on the right angle. So the right value needs to plus, but we'll need a minus value as well. Excuse me, there's a persistent dog across the road. It's not stopping to bark. Hopefully you guys can't hear it, but it's driving me up the wall. Okay, so we want to plus the forward to the right angle, but we also want to minus it, even though it won't be happening at the same time, and you'll see in a second why we are going this route. Let's just break this up and do the same. and we'll need another one for the top location because we're getting the actor location. We would just want the Z value out of this. I was just checking if we can't just say get Z value. Maybe it may get up. I really need to experiment with some of the things a bit more as opposed to getting in a habit of doing things a specific way. It's really, really bad getting in habits. In any case, we'll make the vector. That needs to be the Z value, and the X and Y can go in there. We need the same one. The Z value will also feed this. Okay, and those will basically be the two values that we are selecting. So those ones we can delete, and we can just plug this back in here. This reroute node needs to go. Okay, wait. This scrolling thing isn't working well. Let's quickly see if we can somehow make this a little bit more compact. Doesn't look like it. Okay, that's fine. Just adding another reroute node to get that over there. Okay, so that should complete the process. So just quickly recap what we actually did now. Just saving. Okay, so we built a rotation from the wall normal and got the forward and the right vector based upon we're trying to keep the Z value always according to the capsule. And then we broke down the X and the Y. Well, basically we're just using the Y, so I guess that would be redundant. But and then we got the forward vector and the right vector. We broke that off, multiplied it to create a new vector, and then we add it to the actor location. So this will be, because this is a forward vector, it should be about 50 units forward. I don't know if it's actually 50 units or 5 units. 50 should be 50 centimeters. So yes, it would be 50 units. And this one should be 60 units to the right. So it should be a bit forward right. Now the reason we have the plus and the minus is because we are adding the right side to, so it's going to be a little bit more right or a little bit more left, depending what our requirement is, if we're pressing left or right, which we are getting from this. I really hope that makes sense. I don't know. I think the next tutorial I'll probably speak a little bit clearer and more coherent and still getting back into things. Okay, so let's move back to the event graph. So that's going to fire. So the reason like I said earlier, we have this is just to make sure we don't want this line trace to fire the whole time. I seriously doubt it consumes a lot of CPU power, but it still does consume CPU power. So I'll much rather let it just not fail. Let it just fail, but that would imply we'll have to move this false most likely. We'll have to change. I wonder if we need this false. Oh, but we need to set cover selected also, and I think that's something we missed. I'm just going to copy and paste it, set it to true, plug it in. So we are saying cover is selected. Just want to do a quick reference search. Set cover selected. Okay, so we're currently setting it there. So the reason I'm using that is I wanted an independent bool value, and I'll show you soon why. So right now when we go, 1 second, let's just go back to the function. I just want to change the debug draw for duration. Okay, so it should work to some degree. yeah, as you can see, it traced and it broke now. So it's gonna walk, it reaches the end, it refuses to continue. Let's go the other way, refuses to continue. So you'll notice now that basically nothing is working unless you press back or cover before it'll allow you to run. So the reason for that is it's doing the trace, but when you're moving away from the wall, the trace no longer hits the wall and it's starting to fail at this function here. So that'll just fail. So to fix that, what we want to do is we want to move parallel to the wall and not take any other value. It has to be, if you're in a cover state, it has to be parallel, moving parallel to the wall. So we'll just go and do a select from the add move component for the world direction. Okay, and we are going to still use the right vector. That'll plug into option 1, and we'll say cover selected. So if it is true, it'll actually select the wall normal. Now to do that, we can just open up the copy paste, or what we can do, duplicate the copy XYZ and call it wall vector, maybe wall direction. Let's call it wall direction. It's a little bit clearer as to what it's doing. Pull it in there. We'll have to open it up, change this last value to a vector, and now we need to calculate what we want. So we want the wall normal, want to do the same thing, get the opposite direction of it. So I'll just multiply -1 -1, plug it into make rotation from XZ, and we want to get the right vector. Okay, and that goes in there. So now technically we should be able to always run parallel to the wall. Okay, so now it's not working at all. There's something wrong. Probably need to plug it in so it is able to select a value when we are in cover. There we go. So now even if I look away from the wall, it'll only stay against the wall. So in the next tutorial, we'll just quickly cover how to aim and shoot around corners. I'm thinking we'll just do a plain aim. You'll have to hold in aim to go pew 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 pew. Cool. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try and create a thread, or I will create a thread on the forums and post the link in the comments. Thanks a lot. Cheers.